Well, good. Well, welcome, everyone. We are just at 6:05. We're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, if you are here tonight, we know that you are committed. Welcome to 2022. We're kicking off the year right, getting our goals and our priorities in order for the year. If you don't know me already, I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Blaine Cowart. I am the Vice President of Homeowner Services at Dallas Habitat. I have the great pleasure of working with the best team in the world. We have Christian Marquez, we have Porfirio Coronado, who are here with us tonight, two of our amazing homeownership counselors. If you're working with Porfirio or Christian, give them a shout in the chat box. Let them know that you're here. And to all of our attendees tonight, welcome. We're so excited that you've chosen to be with us tonight and kick off the new year right. Tonight, we are starting to talk about setting financial goals and setting financial resolutions. This is the time of year to do it, right? If you haven't already done it, we're starting with a clean slate, starting fresh, starting over, turning a new leaf. So we're going to talk tonight about not just setting those goals, but realistically how we can keep those goals come December, so we can look back and actually cross those items off our to-do list and move on to our next amazing financial goal. If you're new to our webinars tonight, I want to let y'all know that with webinars, we, Dallas Habitat, we can't hear you or see you. So the best way that you can communicate with us is through the chat box or through what you see on your screen called the Q&A. If you have a question, you can submit it through the Q&A as well, and we'll get to that tonight. We will host an informal Q&A session at the very end, but quite honestly, if you have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to drop them in the chat box and we'll get to them as we go. And lastly, we want to hear from you. Even though chat box is the primary way of communicating with us, don't leave us hanging. So we will ask for some participation throughout the presentation tonight. Please make sure that you shoot us notes or your input or your questions or feedback as we go along. I do want to remind everyone as well that tonight's webinar, just like all of our webinars, is being recorded. And if you didn't already know this, you can actually go back and watch every single webinar that Dallas Habitat conducts live. We record them all and they're all archived on our website. So if you're not sure where to find those on-demand webinars, chat with your counselor and we can help point you in the right direction. You get credit for everything you do if you're in the Dallas Habitat program, whether you're watching it live or on demand. So if you're just new to our program and you're thinking, geez, I wish I would have been here last year to get all of the information that I covered in 2021, you're not too late. All that information has been archived and can be accessed on our website. Link in the chat box. All right, so without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. Let's kick off. So a quick overview about what we're going to discuss this evening. First of all, I want to do some reflection on 2021. What is goal setting and really thinking about the future if we're not taking a moment at least to pause and reflect on what worked for us and maybe didn't work for us last year. Then we're going to talk about what we like to call your core values and why that's so integral for setting goals for yourself. Then we'll talk a little bit about setting your intentions. So, we had to make sure that we are committed to these goals and that we have a game plan for how we're going to achieve those goals. And of course, like the next bullet point says, how are we going to stick with it, right? How many New Year's resolutions are set in January and come July don't exist anymore, right? Abandoned ship. That's pretty common. So we're going to talk about how we can really stick with it all the way through December and avoid breaking our financial goals. And then we'll be here at the end to suggest 5 amazing financial goals that we would encourage you to consider making if you don't already have some set for yourself. And then again, we want to hear from you guys. What are some financial goals that you have this year? All right, so let's get started. First of all, I want to reflect a little bit, like I said, on 2021. So tell us in the chat box, what was your biggest challenge of 2021? Let's start with challenges. Your biggest challenge of 2021. And really, we're talking about financial goals and resolutions. So this is a safe space here. You can let us know in the chat box, what was your biggest financial challenge that you encountered last year? And we think about, as I see some of these answers coming in, think about yes, COVID began in 2020, but let's be real. I mean, 2021 was all consumed by COVID as well. We know that that has affected so many of our financial situations over the last 18 months to 24 months. So, we know that that's a factor here. I see budgeting. Budgeting has been a challenge. Budgeting, it can be a perennial challenge, right? So we can absolutely relate to that. Saving, absolutely. Unexpected medical expenses, yes. Again, especially in this health crisis situation that our country, that the world really has been in over the last couple of years. Paying off credit card debt. Yes, I know, Marquita, sometimes this can feel like you're just, constantly digging yourself out of a hole. We're going to talk about that as one of our goals tonight. So stay tuned for more info on that. Budgeting, saving. Again, so I'm seeing a theme here, right? Budgeting and saving. Unexpected expenses, not just medical, but vehicle as well. Cheryl says, decision to buy a car or not buy a car, right? So that can be challenging. Sometimes thinking about, okay, we have something that we want. Is this the best time for me to actually do it? We're going to talk a little bit about that, Cheryl, later throughout the presentation, when we talk about not just setting goals, but also setting some sub goals for our big financial goals. Janie says savings as well. Hey, Janie, good to see you. Love seeing you here. Credit card debt and savings. Okay, so a lot of themes here, right? Sounds like budgeting, savings, and unexpected expenses are sort of our big 3 financial challenges. Hey, Tiffany, I see that wave. Hey. Okay, but now let's transition to a positive note. So we had some challenges, that's to be expected. What would you say was your biggest accomplishment, your biggest financial accomplishment of 2021? So send us that in the chat. What's something that you're really proud of? And it doesn't have to be big, right? It can be something little, but that's really significant to you. Hey, Christian says joining Dallas Habitat. Yes, I'm doing my happy dance. Yes. We love that. Trying to become a homeowner for the first time. This is Alicia. I love that. Yes. Woohoo. Ivy says spoiling herself. Yes, Ivy, I love that. Odette built up her savings. Kudos, Odette. That's awesome. Congratulations to you. Paying off my credit cards on time, says Kiuna. Yes, yes, ma'am. Cheryl paid off 3 credit cards last year. I'll give you a round of applause for that. I love it. Budgeting, Tiffany stuck with her budgeting. Alracia said he stuck with his credit. Working on credit. Okay, Alyssa, joining that great resignation, right? She says she quit her job and she started a new one with higher pay and higher benefits. Good for you, Alyssa. That's awesome. Janie has got $3,000 saved. Yes, yes, ma'am. I love that. We would say we're going to talk about emergency funds tonight. So hold that thought. Maybe you have, Janie, your $3,000 saved for something in particular. Maybe it's saved for your emergency fund. Either way, that's a huge step for you. Latoya, I love this. She says a success for her was not going further into debt for the holidays because she planned, because she saved and budgeted better in 2021. And so that financial accomplishment of saving better and budgeting better allowed Latoya to be able to achieve a financial goal of hers. So we love that. All right, and last but not least, Marquita says no credit card debt. She boosted her score of 120 points, y'all. 120 points. Marquita, that is amazing. Congrats to you. That's huge. So, and if that was in just 1 year in 2021, I am blown away by that. So all of this is to say, listen, yes, we run into our challenges, but there are good things to celebrate as well. And so it's normal to run into bumps in the road. These things are going to happen. But what we're going to talk about tonight is how to keep our eye on the prize, y'all, because I can't tell you, listen, our counseling team talks about this all the time. Can't tell you how many people come to us in January of each year and say, new year, new me. I am buying a house this year. I'm paying off my debt this year. I'm saving this year. I'm doing all the things, right? And that may be possible. What is also very possible is that we're going to run into unexpected things, right? Roadblocks that come up along the way, curveballs that are thrown at us. So it's not about how do we get derailed, right? Or, oh, here it comes. I'm not going to be able to achieve my goal, right? But this is really about how do we prepare for those things so we can navigate through, still make it to the end, and check off our big financial goals that we want to see for ourselves. Thank you all so much for participating in that. I am stoked hearing about all of your successes that you had last year. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about tonight is determining your core values. And why this really matters to us is because at the end of the day, your core values are what we would call your why, right? So if your financial goal, for instance, is to buy a house, then buying a house is not really your why, right? That's a goal. And we would say, but what is the core value that you have that's driving you to buy a house, that's encouraging, motivating you to buy a house, right? And so when you're thinking about your goals, and this is not just financial goals, but that's what we were here talking about tonight, right? When you think about what those goals are for yourself, what we really suggest that you do is try to align your hopes, your wishes, your dreams with your core values. And that's going to help you to prioritize and determine really what matters most to you. And this is important because come April or come July, when that curveball is thrown your way, if you've done your homework, you've done your due diligence, you've done your reflection to know, I'm interested in buying a house this year, not just because buying a house is a good thing to do, not just because Dallas Habitat says home ownership is a great thing and everybody should be able to access it, right? But it's really because I want financial stability for my family. I want to build generational wealth for my children and for my children's children. I want a safe place to call home at the end of the day. Destiny says, I want to create a stable home for my family, right? Destiny, that's a great example. That would be a core value of yours, right? And so that core value paired with a dream that you have can now be translated into a goal that means something for you and that you're motivated by, something that you say, no matter what happens, right? No matter what may happen with my job, what may happen with my savings, unexpected expenses that come up, my core value doesn't change. The fact that I want to provide a stable home for my family, if I'm Destiny, right? That doesn't change. It's a value of mine. So when you're reflecting on your financial goals, think about what is important to you and what matters to you. So let's discuss like a couple of examples of core values. We already went through one, right, with home ownership. What about, if a core value that you have is to build long-lasting wealth, like generational wealth, right? Again, like for your children, for your grandchildren, maybe one day, what might be a financial goal that would allow you to do that? Besides home ownership, because we were talking about home ownership, right? What's another thing that you might be able to do that you could pair with that core value? And drop your suggestions in the chat box. We want to hear from you. Ooh, investment. Yes, investments, starting a family business. Julian, I love that. Yes, starting a family business. Because again, this is about a family business can be something that we can leave for our children or for our children's children, right? Even if they don't choose to take over that business one day, they've got a financial asset that we have made an investment in them, right? We've made that upfront investment that then they can benefit from long term. When we think about other different kinds of investment, yes, Ivy, just keep on growing financially, right? Keep on setting those financial goals so we're achieving financial wellness. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that may be like really sticking to our budget, really being diligent about saving. Even if we're not able to save a whole lot at any given time, it adds up over time. We're going to talk about that tonight. When we talk about investing, investing was put in there in the comments. I think about saving for higher education for your children, right? It could be investing for retirement for your future, right? So all of these different ways that we can do that. So think about, again, like reflect a little bit on what your core values are, what's driving you, so you can really make goals that matter to you and are not goals that maybe work for somebody else or are good on paper, but they're things that you really can take to heart and that you're willing to commit yourself to. Okay, so the next step is, now that you've done your reflection, you've determined what your core values are, then we would really suggest that we set some intentions. Okay, so let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. So first of all, envision yourself where you want to be 1 year from now, right? So if this is your goal, we're talking about setting financial goals and resolutions for 2022. Where do you want to see yourself financially when you're sitting in this chair in January of 2023? What do you want to look back on and say, I did that? I'm proud of myself because it wasn't easy, but I stuck to it. I made an action plan and I made it through, right? I'm able to check that off my list and move on to the next thing. So start by envisioning that. Then we want to determine what are 2 to 3 actionable steps that we can take in order to get there. So we want to make sure that we do this in a manageable way, right? If we throw out this really big goal, but we don't have a plan to get there, we're probably going to fail from the get-go. So think very specifically about what those steps are, and then write them down. Who's heard this before? There is a saying that I love. It's something to the effect of a goal without a plan is just a wish, right? And so we might want things in our life, financially or otherwise. We might hope and wish and desire to have those things, but if we don't have a plan in place, it may not happen. And so the best way that we can do that is by setting something called SMART goals. Let me know in the chat if you've heard of SMART goals before. If these are things that maybe you've used in your professional life or in your personal life, like elsewhere. But I really think that SMART goals, if you're familiar with them, are a great way to begin thinking about what those actionable steps are that you can take to achieve your goals. Okay, so if you haven't heard of SMART goals, if this is a new concept to you, SMART is an acronym that stands for the following that you see on the screen. First of all, S stands for specific. So you don't want to be vague about this, right? Like you don't want to say just like, I just want to be financially well this year. Well, what does that mean? What that means for me might be very different for what it means to Porfirio. That may be very different for Christian, right? So be specific for yourself. Are you trying to save a certain amount? Are you trying to budget a certain amount, pay down certain debt, right? The M in SMART goals stands for measurable. So again, let's quantify this. Renisha has a great example that she just dropped in the chat. She wants to build 6 months of emergency savings. Okay, so she's specific, 6 months worth, she doesn't just want to save, right? She's saying, I want to have 6 months worth of expenses saved in my emergency fund. All right, and that's something that can be measurable, right? Because Renisha knows how much 1 month or more, she said, yes, or more, always more, right? It would be ideal. But she knows how much a month's worth of expenses are for her. So then she's able to say, okay, that times 6 is going to equal my emergency fund. So it's measurable. Achievable means it's realistic. Okay. So let's not set ourselves up for something like, let's not say if I have $100,000 in student loan debt today in January of 2022, for me to say in 2022, I'm going to pay off all of my student loan debt might be possible. But very likely is it's going to take me longer than that, right? So let's make sure it's achievable. Let's make sure it's relevant, right? Relevant to me, to what I want. Again, this goes back to setting our core values, right? It may be a good goal, but it may not be a good goal for me. So make sure it's relevant. And then lastly, the T in SMART goals stands for time bound. So Renisha was great to drop in her example, and I'm going to use that as an example. 6 months of emergency savings. And I would say to Renisha, by when? By when do you want to have 6 months of emergency savings saved? And when she's able to define that, boom, she's got a SMART goal. Okay. She says, I want to have 6 months of emergency savings saved by December of 2022. Okay. Now we have a SMART goal. Okay. Now we're very specific and we've got something that we can move towards. And I love this, y'all. I'm just reading these comments in the chat. Sherelle, thank you for dropping your comment in here. And says, yes, setting goals changed my life financially and professionally. I always have to remind myself, don't change the goal, change the strategy. Okay, dropping gems here, y'all. Don't change the goal, change the strategy. Again, if that goal is aligned with your core value, this is something important and it's not worth dropping. We're going to do everything that we can. Like Cheryl said, we're going to change the strategy if we have to. We're going to pivot. We're going to try something new out. We maybe need a level set and adjust, but we're going to do what we need to do to make it happen. Okay. Sometimes that means kicking out the timeline. If that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do. Right. So nothing wrong with that. No shame in that. Again, the goal doesn't change, but our process of getting there might. I would say, to leave you with just a word of encouragement on this, as we think forward into this year, 2022, let's set our hearts and our minds on abundance, right? Let's have an abundance mindset and just think positive about what can happen this year. You know, it's been a rough couple of years for all of us with the pandemic and everything that's still going on with that. And so I would just really encourage you all this year, you know, think about focusing on increasing and growing. You know, I've heard this saying before. I'm going to leave this with you tonight. Increase what you own and release what you owe. Okay. I'm going to say that again. Increase what you own and release what you owe. Okay. And that makes it sound, I know, very simple. It's more complex than that. But again, if we can focus on these mantras to remember, I am able to do this. It may require adjustments, but I am able to do it and I'm committed to it. We can see it through. And we see this, Christian, myself, Porfirio, Aretha, our other homeownership counselor, we see this every single day with clients that we're working with. So very feasible. And I would also, just before we switch to the next slide, I just want to really encourage you guys here. When you think about setting yourself goals, financial goals, remember too, that you want to pace yourself, right? So we may have a lot of financial goals, but they may not all be suitable for the next 12 months. So again, think about how you want to prioritize these goals. What is most important to you? And then realistically, what are we able to go after immediately? What might we need more time to work on? And, you know, be realistic about your goals, but also consider stretch goals, okay? So being realistic doesn't mean that you should hold yourself back from big, scary goals, okay? Sometimes we need to stretch ourselves and say, I can do this. It's going to be hard. It's going to be painful, but it's possible, okay? We talk about this a lot in homeownership counseling when we talk about like budgeting and setting up our budget to be able to maximize our savings. And this is one reason that our counselors always do a budget with our clients, right? We may be able to sit down with you all and say, listen, the numbers speak for themselves. Numbers don't lie. Technically, the money is there to be able to aggressively save, okay? So if the money's there, how do we maybe make ourselves a stretch goal? Knowing that this goal isn't gonna be our new normal for the rest of our lives, right? But maybe my stretch goal requires that I'm outside of my comfort zone and really committed to my goal for the next 6 months. But once I cross that goal off my list, then I can shift, right? What's my next goal? What's the next thing I'm after? So just remember these things. You know, you don't have to tackle everything at one time. Remember to pace yourself, remember to prioritize and think about what's most important to you. Okay, so the next step is sticking to it, making sure that, you know, we make it past July, that we make it past January. There's some years, right, that we set those resolutions in January and then come February, it's like, oh man, that was way too hard. I can't stick with that for the rest of the year. So here are some tips that we have for you to stay the course. First of all, check in often. Ask yourself, how does the goal feel, right? Like, is this something that you've been able to commit to, or is it too unattainable? Did you think that this is possible in January, but come March, you're thinking like, there's just no way. This is not working for me. It doesn't feel good to me anymore, right? So check in on yourself. Make sure that you have an accountability partner. If you're working in the Dallas Habitat program, you're already a leg up on this because you already have an accountability partner in your homeownership counselor. So Christian, Aretha, Porfirio, these are your accountability partners, right? When you get that email from them every month, if not more often, or you get that phone call from them, right? How's your goal going? How's savings going? Right? We talked about paying off these things on your debt or on your credit. How's that going? We talked about boosting your income. What progress have you made there? Right? That is your counselor stepping into those shoes of your accountability person. And so if no one else in your life is willing to do that for you, you've got that here at Dallas Habitat. And we're really invested in helping you guys see it through to the end, right? Whatever those financial goals are. Take advantage of resources that are out there, right? So we talk about like free classes, special events, like Habitat does all of this kind of stuff and more, right? And so are there events that we've got coming up that you say, you know what, this is going to help me on my financial goal. I can come and learn about XYZ. You know, I'm going to take 2 hours out of my evening to come and attend that event, right? Or I'm going to take an hour out of my weeknight to come and attend a workshop on this. And that's a form of self-care as well. You know, keeping your goals posted, right? How many people keep their goals like, or something that's important to them that they want to keep like front of mind on their mirror, like the bathroom mirror or in a vanity, something like that. Maybe like by your door before you head out of the house in the morning, or at your desk in your office. You know, these kinds of things that are important to us, sometimes we have to remind ourselves like constantly, don't forget this matters. Marquita says on her whiteboard in her room. Yes, like somewhere that you see like every single day, right? Where you can reiterate that to yourself, even on those days that it feels so hard, that you're like, oh, I'm gonna do this. I just want to abandon ship, right? But she's waking up every morning, seeing that on her whiteboard in her room, saying like, no, I have got to stick with it. Christian mentioned a vision board. We're going to talk about that, Christian. I love vision boarding, and we're going to talk about that as a great strategy tonight. Yes, we want to hear from you if you have a vision board. Let us know. And like Sherelle said earlier, this is just a different way of saying, you know, what she shared with us, but be willing to adapt instead of abandon. Okay. Instead of just saying this goal is not working for me, forget it. Think about how we're going to pivot and adapt and do things differently to be able to stick with it long term. Tiffany, I see your note in there. Tiffany says, I like to leave myself positive notes. I love that. And so just like little reminders, right? Like you can do this. Affirmations, if you will, right? Like just reminding yourself, like you are capable of this. Yes, it is hard. How many people use the mantra, we can do hard things, right? I love that. We can do hard things, right? It may seem intimidating. It may seem insurmountable, but we can do it. We can do it. All of that is possible. I love that. Ivy says she's doing her vision board, and she's been doing it. She did it for 2 years. I love that. I love that. So again, think about who your accountability partners are in order to be able to stick with it, and make sure that you're holding yourself accountable. Okay, so let's talk about how to avoid breaking your goals. Okay, so first of all, remember asking yourself as you set these goals, and this starts today, right? Like not halfway through the process, but like today as you're setting these goals, think about, am I mentally ready to achieve these goals? Like, am I in the proper mental space to be able to do this? We talked about like being committed, being intentional, remembering your why, remembering that core value. I'm really going to harp on this for a second, y'all. Do not let others kill your dream. There are so many negative Nancy's out there. I cannot tell you like how many people we work with at Dallas Habitat who achieve homeownership through Dallas Habitat, and don't just say to us, like, I never thought that I would achieve homeownership. But we have so many people that say, like, nobody thought I could do this. Not just me, like nobody. Like no one was there cheering me on. And this is like my way of showing the world, like, yes, I can. Yes, I did. Yes, I have. Right. And so don't let other people bring you down and tell you all the reasons why you will never be able to buy a house, or all the reasons why, you know, well, you'll never make more money, you know, based on your degree or whatever it might be. Right. And there's so many negative people out there that are trying to bring others down with them. We are going to rise above, right? Yes, haters are going to hate. I know, right? And so we're just going to let that go. We're going to release that, and we're going to focus on our intentionality and our commitment. So find yourself, again, a positive accountability partner. Like I said, if no one else, I know you'll get a positive accountability partner in your counselor at Habitat, who will be there every step of the way, cheering you along as you make it across the finish line. And then, you know, just a reminder when it comes to gratitude, right? Just being grateful for what we have achieved, even if we haven't made it to the big goal that we're striving for. If we've made any kind of progress, let's celebrate that. Let's celebrate those wins. Even if they're just small and they seem insignificant, it does matter. Any kind of steps that we're making count. And I love this. Gratitude brings abundance, right? Gratitude brings abundance. So, right, leaning into that intentionality and just remembering that, like, focusing on what we can do, controlling what we can, and letting go of what we can't. Okay. Y'all didn't know that you were in for all of this tonight, did you? Like, you were just thinking we're talking about finances like we normally do, but tonight is all about this positive energy and positive vibes. So Sherelle dropped a note in here that I'm reading it. She says, when I write down my budget, it stresses me out. I get that, Sherelle. It is stressful. What's really, what can be really stressful is knowing what your spending plan is, like on paper, and then looking at reality, right? And you're like, oh, I blew it again. I thought I only spend $5 a month on coffee, but my bank statements don't say $5 a month. They say $25 a month, whatever the case might be. And you know what? That's okay. First of all, like, let's just acknowledge the fact that you don't have to like budgeting. You don't have to love it. And a lot of people don't. Some people do, right? Like, some people find it very freeing to know, like, everything in your budget, like all of your income, all your expenses are accounted for, and have a place, if you will. But for a lot of people, that is really unnerving. And it's really unsettling, and it can be really stressful. And so that's okay, right? But again, if your goal is around budgeting, or if your goal requires that you do budget on a consistent basis, then even though budgeting is painful, we can connect it back to our why, right? And so I'll give this example. When I was buying my first house, I had to save every last penny that I could afford to save. Homeownership can sometimes be expensive, right? And so I remember, going through my budget, and it was stressful, Sherelle, to your point, to think about, like, oh my gosh, all these things I'm going to have to cut out because this money has to come from somewhere. It's just not going to appear out of thin air. And so I identified all these ways that I said, these are not things that I'm going to permanently cut out of my budget, but even the little things that add up, if I cut these things out for the next 6 months, I could accelerate my timeline by 2-fold, maybe 3-fold, right? And so when you think about things that are stressful, like budgeting, I would suggest thinking about, like, okay, budgeting is a means to an end. What is our goal? What is our why that's driving that goal? And if I've got a budget to be able to get there, okay, then so be it, right? But if I'm making small progress towards that goal, that's going to feel good because it's motivated by my why. And so hopefully that'll make it a little less painful when you don't have a financial goal. And let's put it this way, if budgeting stresses you out and you don't have a financial goal that you're working towards, budgeting is just probably going to stress you out, right? But if budgeting stresses you out, but you have a very defined goal that you're working towards, it may make the budgeting process a little bit less painful because you know why you're doing it, right? You have this intentionality behind it. Yeah, Marquita says, I enjoy budgeting now that I'm older. My kids are getting older. Yes, kids are expensive. So there's that, right? And so, yes, I mean, and again, like I said, for some people, budgeting is a sense of freedom as well, right? Like knowing where that money is going to be able to have more control over it. But that's just a values thing. At the end of the day, like, some of us develop, we all develop attitudes and values towards money when we're very young, like what we see from our family a lot of times, right? And so sometimes it's very hard, even as adults, to break free from these attitudes that we have towards money because they're so ingrained with who we've become as an adult. And so, yeah, Tiffany says here on that same topic, budgeting is really hard for her, but now she does her needs versus her wants, right? And has her needs and her wants clearly defined, and it became a little easier, right? And so that also, and I will say on the topic of budgeting, before we move on, Dallas Habitat, we do have a ton of resources on our website for budgeting. We have budgeting workshops that we've done. We've got resources that we're going to talk about here tonight on our platform called PocketWise. And so there are tools that can make it a little easier if budgeting is just not really your cup of tea. If sitting down with a Excel spreadsheet or a pen and paper is like enough to make you want to pull your hair out, then maybe there's some tools that we can share with you that will make it a little less painful as well. Yeah, and I see this note in here saying it's hard, but it's possible, right? And so that's really what all this boils down to, is that financial goals can be tough, they can be hard, but they are possible, and it's all about making that game plan and just sticking with it. Okay, so we're gonna talk about 5 financial goal-getter moves that we have here tonight to consider for 2022. It says for 2, but we meant for 2022, Okay, so these are not goals that anyone is obliged to move forward with, right? But if you're sitting here thinking, okay, I'm pumped up, I'm motivated, but like, I don't really have a financial goal, I'm not really clear on what my goal should be. These are 5 examples of goals that are fantastic financial goals to have, and how you might be able to tackle some of these goals. All right, so first we have increasing your emergency fund. If you bring nothing away from the Alice Habitat program, think about the importance of saving. Okay, you're going to hear this in every single Habitat webinar that you attend with us. Save, save, save. You'll hear us say over and over again, pay yourself first, which means before you pay your landlord, before you pay creditors, before you pay anybody that you owe money to, pay yourself first, which is to say save, okay? Building that emergency fund. Okay, so when we go through these 5 goals, we're going to talk about why these goals matter, and then I'm going to give you one example of a SMART goal that you can set towards that overarching goal. Okay, so why increasing your emergency fund matters? First of all, one word, enough said, COVID. Okay, COVID. We all know what happened in March of 2020 when everyone, I think everyone can safely say on a global level, everybody was like, am I going to have a job tomorrow? Right? Think about what that was like and how scary of a moment that was for all of us. And think about if, God forbid, anything like that were to happen again. Maybe not on that level or scale, right? But like, God forbid, what if you were to lose your job? What if you had a medical emergency? What if you had an unexpected life change, right? Anything can happen. And we have to make sure that we are properly prepared, that our finances are in order. So another reason that this matters, building your emergency fund is a great way to recession-proof your finances. This is going to allow you to weather the financial storm, okay? So again, it's not a matter of if we bump into roadblocks along the way. We are going to run into roadblocks. We always do. All of us do. So the question is, are we prepared? Are we prepared when those roadblocks come our way to be able to be nimble, be agile, move around them, and still be able to be in a position of financial wellness? All right, so you might be saving like, Blaine, how much is enough? How much should I be targeting to save? So typically when we're talking about an emergency fund, emergency savings, we would suggest that you're saving anywhere between 3 to 6 months worth of your monthly expenses, okay? That's a good rule of thumb. But as you'll see appear on the screen, honestly, in today's economy, like, things are improving now, right? But like, especially over the last 2 years with COVID, really a lot of financial experts are saying you'd be better off having anywhere from 9 to 12 months saved, okay? Sitting where we are today in January 2022, it's been almost 2 years since the beginning of the pandemic, right? And I know I keep harping on this, but like, it's such a really important, relevant, timely example of why it's so important to have some of these financial goals. But 2 years in, we're still dealing with this. We're still dealing with a lot of the economic repercussions, financial repercussions of COVID. And so if we only had 3 months of emergency funds saved, maybe that was enough, maybe not, right? And so really, if you can save more, then, up to 12 months would be like super ideal. But if you're starting here thinking today, like, I don't have anything saved for an emergency fund, I'm really just living paycheck to paycheck, I know I should be saving something, but I don't really know what, we would say shoot for anywhere between 3 to 6 months worth of your expenses, okay? Particularly your needs, right? Think about what your needs are, your housing, your transportation to your job, food, gas, like those sorts of things that are absolute needs, and then taking a look at your wants. And so again, like, obviously when you're sitting down tallying those up, take that total of your total monthly needs multiply it by the number of months, and that's going to tell you what your goal is for your emergency fund. Okay. So instead of just saying like, I'm going to save 3 months worth of expenses, get specific with yourself, right? Be specific and do the math and see, well, how much realistically would that require that I save? Because how are we going to make a plan to achieve that goal if we're not really clear on what that goal is, right? And so this is how we hold ourselves accountable. So here's an example of a SMART goal. I'm going to say, in this example, my monthly needs are $1,500 a month, and I'm looking to save 3 months worth of expenses. That means my overall goal for my emergency fund is $4,500, okay, $4,500. So a SMART goal example for me to be able to do this would be, I'm going to save $58 every paycheck into my savings account through direct withdrawal, okay, or direct deposit, in order to grow my emergency fund by $1,500 by December the 31st of 2022, okay? So I might have said, listen, I can't save $4,500 this year. Like in my budget, that just doesn't work, okay? It's still a goal of mine, but it's a big, big goal of mine. So how do I divvy this into bite-sized chunks that are more feasible for me? So I looked at my budget and I could say, okay, I can save $1,500 by the end of this year. And that's going to put me on track. And so again, thinking about how we break this down is going to allow us to be able to do this in a very reasonable way that allows us to hold ourselves accountable. Okay. So, and I will say here, I want to point out on the bottom of the screen, you're going to see specific modules that we have available on our platform called PocketWise. PocketWise, which we've just dropped a link to that in the chat. If you haven't checked it out already, be sure to check this out. It's a fantastic resource. These are free modules. They're available to anybody. You don't have to be in the Habitat program. Take advantage. And all about financial education. I have on here PocketWise modules that are specific to each of these goals. So if you're like, Blaine, this is my goal for 2022, then I would say check out the Build Emergency Savings module on PocketWise as a supplement to this webinar tonight. So make sure that you go on and check out these resources as well. Okay, goal number 2, pay down debt. Oh, this is a big goal. I know we hear this all the time. We have a lot of debt as consumers, right? And so rightfully so. If you're thinking about paying down your debt, this can be one of those goals that seems like all consuming, but it doesn't have to be. When we talk about why it matters, debt can hold us back from achieving some of our most significant financial goals that we have. You know, paying down our debt can make savings difficult, right? Because the extra money that we have outside of meeting our needs and our wants, a lot of times it's going to paying down debt, whereas it could be going to building our emergency fund or saving for financial goals. Having a lot of debt also is going to hold our credit score down. So if our financial goal is to increase our credit score by, let's say, 50 points this year, that might require that we pay down some of our debt. And of course, having a lot of debt is going to impact your ability to qualify for a mortgage. And so we know so many people who are here tonight have the goal of homeownership this year or beyond. And so we would say, if that is a goal of yours, make sure that, you know, paying down your debt, if you do have debt, is a goal that you prioritize for yourself. We're going to talk a little bit about how interest compounds, right? Meaning how your money can help grow itself over time. But what we would say when it comes to debt is that it works both ways, right? Meaning the longer that it takes you to pay off your debt, the more money you're going to pay on that debt in interest in the long run. Okay. So it really, when we talk about, again, why it matters to pay it down, you're going to save yourself money over the long run in paying down your debt. And it is not impossible. So like, again, do not let the haters tell you that it is impossible to reduce your debt. It is very achievable. There's 2 methods a lot of times that you'll hear us talk about in our classes that are specific on paying down debt and our credit courses. And those are the snowball method and the avalanche method. Okay. And then you can learn about these methods and other methods. Again, on PocketWise, we've got a debt payoff module that will help you navigate some of these subjects. Thinking about, does it make sense for me to start with my biggest balance on my debt and work my way down from there, right? What we call the avalanche method. Or does it make sense for me to start with my smallest payment, right? And work my way up to my biggest, the snowball method. And so again, if you're not sure, and if you're working with one of our counselors, we can help guide you in that direction as well. A SMART goal example for paying down your debt would be, SMART goal example number 1, pay off my credit card balance in full by June of this year. And to do this, I will pay at least $200 per month towards my balance, okay? So I've sat down, I've done the math, I know how much I owe, I know how much I'd have to pay each month between now and June to be able to achieve it on that timeline. Example number 2, I want to reduce my debt by $400 a month by October of this year. Okay, I want to reduce my debt to $400 a month, maybe so that I can repurpose that $400 a month in my budget towards saving, for instance. Just one example. And the way that I'm going to do that in June, I'm going to pay off my car loan by September by applying an extra $50 a month towards my balance above what I owe, right? And so in doing these 2 sub goals, I'm going to be able to reduce my overall debt by $400 a month by October, okay? So again, sometimes it is easier and more efficient to think about our big goals also with some sub goals that fall underneath them. Like in order to do this big thing, I first have to do these 3 small things. Okay, goal example number 3, stick to your budget. We've had a lot of discussion already tonight, right? About how sticking to your budget can be really painful, but it is a necessary process for sure, right? Okay, so why does it matter? Following your budget is going to be the best way for you to keep track of your financial health in real time. And I emphasize in real time because we talk a lot about this at Habitat, about how your budget should be a living document, right? Document, whether it's an electronic document, whether you're doing an app like Mint, or you need a budget or something like that. Or if you're doing like old school pen and paper, like receipts, checkbook ledger, Excel document, whatever works for you, right? If you're doing it in real time, it's a budget. If we're looking back 6 months from now and just seeing like, well, I spent way more than I thought I spent, I don't even know where that money went, that's not really a budget, right? Looking at my bank account balance and saying like, I got money in there, I'm good, that's not a budget, right? Budgeting is really sitting down and comparing how are we doing against our plan. Our budget is our plan, but every month we've got to check up on that plan. I say every month, y'all. It might be, you know, for you, it might be weekly. It might be, if you get paid every 2 weeks, maybe it's every 2 weeks, right? Maybe it is monthly, really whatever works for you based on your personal scenario. It also, you know, budgeting is going to give you a realistic idea of where you need to cut back. Like I mentioned earlier, you might think in your mind that you spend a certain amount on some category of a want, but the reality may prove differently when we're really looking at our budget and being truthful with ourselves, right? So that's another reason as to why you might budget. And when we talk about unexpected expenses, if we are budgeting, then we can quickly and in real time assess how we going to pivot. Where are we going to take from to be able to cover this unexpected expense, right? Where am I going to cut back this month to be able to maximize my income and make sure that I don't go into debt or have to dip into savings that were set aside for another goal of mine? And your budget should account for your other financial goals, right? So like if your goal is to build your savings, then your budget should include that amount that you need to be setting aside, if it's weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, to be able to achieve your goal. So here's an example. This year, I will make time on the first Sunday of every month to review my last month's progress, determine what I may need to adjust to stay on budget, and not exceed my total budgeted expenses. So like no matter what happens, I know that I've said for myself, I'm not going to spend more than $3,000 a month in total expenses, right? And so no matter what, I'm going to stick to this, because on the first Sunday of the month, I'm going back, I'm looking at how I did last month, and I'm figuring out what do I need to adjust this month, if anything. And so that's just a way that I can stick with that goal. And the PocketWise module for this would be the monthly budgeting tool. All right, goal example number 4, buy a home. We hope that this is the goal of yours. Of course, at Habitat, for most of our clients, it is. Maybe this year, again, maybe beyond. Why it matters, so many reasons that homeownership matters. First and foremost, home ownership continues to be the #1 way for families to build wealth in the United States. Generational wealth. I mean, when you think about, again, being able to leave a legacy for your children and for their children one day, home ownership is the best possible way that you can do that. And of course, there's the emotional part of home ownership, something that we can leave, financial stability or provide financial stability for our family, security, more independence than if we're renting. And really, it allows us to make something from a house into our home. And so that's so special. A SMART goal example for home ownership. My SMART goal in 2022 may be to close on a home that meets my family's needs by September. Oh, it says 2021. Y'all forgive me. By September of 2022. Okay. In order to achieve this goal, I'm going to increase my credit score to 620 or above because my counselor told me that's what I need to get approved for an affordable mortgage. Okay. I'm going to do that by the end of April. Then after I do that, my next sub goal is going to be to reduce my debt by $150 a month. Okay. So I'm going to follow my debt payment plan that maybe I made with my homeownership counselor on the very specific goals, that I have. Maybe it's the snowball method. Maybe it's the avalanche method, right? Depending on my circumstance. And I'm going to do that by May. And then I'm going to work on my final goal related to homeownership, which is my savings. I know my counselor told me I need at least $3,000 saved specifically for the upfront cost of homeownership. This is not to be confused with my emergency fund, right? These are not one and the same, but this is $3,000 saved specifically for like closing costs, a down payment, upfront money that goes towards buying a house. Okay, and that's going to be by July. And when I do these 3 things, when I increase my credit score, I reduce my debt by $150 a month, and I save that $3,000, now I'm ready to be able to be in a position to actually close on a home by September of this year. Okay. So again, you just throwing out this goal of saying, I want to buy a house in 2022. That's a wish. That's a desire. That's a hope. How are we going to make that into a goal? Right. So then we had to break that down and really think about what do I need to do to be able to achieve that goal? And we've got tons of education about home ownership on PocketWise. We have a whole playlist dedicated to that called Considering Home Ownership. So be sure to check that out. And then lastly, a great other financial goal that you may consider for this year or beyond would be to invest in your future. So again, we touched on this earlier about the power of compounding interest. But at its core, compounding interest means that your money is working for you, right? That we don't just work for our money is working for us as well. And what that means is that the earlier that you begin investing, the more money you're going to earn over time. That's something that we call compound interest, okay? So even if you're young and you're like, I have got so many years until I retire one day, I do not need to be saving for retirement now. The reality is, if you start saving for retirement in your 20s, you're going to be way, way, way further ahead than you will be if you start saving in your 40s or your 50s. Okay. So be thinking about that. And, also think about free money that's on the table. 401ks, a lot of employers will match your 401k. Think about at this time of year, are you getting a match through your employer? Do you have to contribute a minimum amount so that they'll match you? What is the maximum amount that they will match your 401k contribution? That maximum amount is the most amount of free money that they will give you. Are you taking advantage of all the free money that they're willing to help give you to help you save for retirement? So here's a SMART goal example. I want to start contributing to my employer's 401k plan by allocating $75 per paycheck so that I can save a total of $2,000 by the end of this year. Okay. So 75 bucks a paycheck. I'm gonna do it, direct deposit. It's gonna be painless. I'm not even gonna see it in my check. It's gonna be in and out before it even hits my bank account, right? Who's heard of a 529 account? If you've heard of a 529 account, send me a chat. Send me a shout in the chat box and let me know if you've heard of a 529. Yeah, Renisha said yes. 529, great investment option for thinking about saving for your children's education. If you have children that you are hoping and planning on going to college one day, think about this. Again, it's an investment opportunity for you to be able to grow your money. This is not just savings, right? If you save $500 a month for the next, 18 years, at the end of 18 years, you're going to have 500 times 18 years worth. Okay, that's it. But if you start investing in something like a 529 account, your money is going to grow exponentially. You're going to have way more than the equivalent of just saving $500 a month for 18 years, right? Because that money will have grown on itself. So think about being smart and investing. These are really feasible, easy things that you can do. We've got playlists on PocketWise, of course, on this as well. So if you're like, I don't know what a 529 account is, but I feel like maybe I should know what that is. First of all, it's never too late to open one of these for your children, even if you've got teenagers that are thinking about going to college. You can learn about these types of investment accounts on PocketWise, on the Preparing for Retirement playlist, and Paying for College playlist as well. And Sherelle reminds us 529s are tax-free, meaning that if you spend that money on qualified expenses, including like college, higher education, even vocational school, any kind of professional training, that money is not taxed. Woohoo! So yes, again, like take advantage of these resources that are out there. But in order to do that, we need to plan. We need to set our goal and make a plan. All right, so the moment has arrived. I hope you guys are feeling excited and motivated. Tell us in the chat, what are your financial goals for this year? We want to hear from you. And I want to hear a SMART goal. I want to hear SMART goal, right? I don't want to only hear hopes, wishes, and dreams. Be specific, be measurable, be time bound, right? Throw this out into the universe so we can claim it, right? Speak it so that it becomes reality. So tell us in the chat box, what is your SMART goal for 2022? Okay, Odette, we're going to hold you accountable and speak this out loud. Odette's goal for 2022 is to have $5,000 saved for closing costs by September. Yes, ma'am, you can do it. We're going to be here cheering you on along the way. Renisha, she has the goal of home ownership, paying down her debt, and saving. Okay, I like those. I like those big goals. Remember, let's make them specific. Let's make them time bound, right? By when? By when do we want to do these things, and how are we going to get there? Love this. Adding more. Ivy says she wants to add more to her savings and upgrading her credit score. Okay, and I'm going to give you pushback on this. Y'all are going to hear me say this over and over. I'm going to say, Ivy, that's an awesome start. And we want to know, be specific with yourself. Like, don't be afraid. Be bold, right? Be bold. Even if you're like, I don't know, like 700 credit score, like that's high. I don't know if I can do it. Be bold. Put it out there. If you make a plan and stick to it, you can do it. Okay. Let's see. Alrisha, also have closing mid-year. Okay, try to close on a house this year by the middle of the year. That would be awesome. Destiny's goal to pay off credit card debt by March of this year. Love that. So eliminating credit card debt. There is no greater feeling than paying off our credit card debt. Am I right about that? Kuna says pay off her debt by July so she can raise her credit score. Love that. And Kuna, I would say raise your credit score to what, right? Again, be bold. Set yourself a goal. What is your goal? What do you want to be sitting here in January of 2023 looking back and saying, man, a year ago I said I wanted a credit score of 800 and I thought, ain't no way. But here I am a year later and I was able to do this, right? So like be bold with yourself. Don't be afraid to put pen to paper. Okay, Kuna, claiming it right now, 720, right? Okay, so, and I would say, make sure you're working with your accountability partner who, Kuna, that might be Aretha for you. I might be mistaken about that. But if your homeownership counselor is Aretha, for instance, right? Or Christian or Porphyria, have them hold you accountable, right? Where we're saying, hey, we know your goal is 720. She says, yes, it's Aretha. Okay. And Miss Aretha will be there every step of the way, I promise you, right? To say, how we doing? Do we have a setback? No problem. Do we need a level set? Do we need to adjust and pivot, right? What do we need to do? Del Martinez says 620. Yes, ma'am. 620 is going to put you right there in that range for home ownership, for being able to qualify for a mortgage. That's a great target to have. We love that. Sherelle's SMART goal for 2022 is pay off credit card debt by December of this year, using the avalanche method. I'm impressed by this. She already knows. She's like, yes, that's my way. I'm doing it. She's also not going to use her credit cards unless she can pay off the credit cards immediately. So basically using those credit cards as a debit card. Love that philosophy. That's a great way to make sure you're living debt-free and being able to maximize your money for the financial goals that you have. All right, Janie's credit score goal is 680 to 700. That's a fantastic goal to have for your credit score. Feasible. Again, we know that we can help you do that through the Habitat program as well. And again, if you're like, what is my credit score, right? Remember, Dallas Habitat, we can help you. We pull soft pull credit for you, which means we can help you see your score without having a negative impact on your credit report, right? So if you're not sure like what your progress is like, touch base with your counselor, right? And let's do a check and see. All right, Marquita says, save $1,000. No, I'm sorry. Ooh, am I reading that right? $10,000. Save $10,000 for my home by October by sticking with it with no spend months. Oh, I love this philosophy. No spend months, staying out of debt, and increasing my income, right? And so again, this is all possible. 10K, y'all. That's a big goal, right? But again, anything is possible if we've got the right mindset and we've got a plan, all right? And we're ready to stick to that plan. Kiyuna's talking about Aretha. I just saw this chat. Says she is on me all the time and I love her. Yes, she will be, right? But again, that's our job, right? Stick with it, hold you accountable. Nobody wants to see you guys achieve your financial goals more than your homeownership counselor, right? We are in it with you guys from the very, very beginning. We want to see you win just as much as you want to see yourself win. So let us hold you accountable, when we're emailing, even if you're like, dang, Aretha, Christian, Porphyria, like stop emailing me like I haven't made any progress. I've had a setback. That's okay, right? Communicate with us, let us know so we can help lean in and help you no matter what. Latoya says her goal this year is to improve her credit score and save more, at least $3,000. So she's being specific with herself. She knows this is her goal, right? And so again, like if that's your goal by the end of the year, let's make that goal time bound. Write it down, stick it on our bathroom mirror, do what we need to do to keep it top of mind for us. I love it. And we say, I see a note here, the ultimate goal of buying a house. And I think that's there's a commonality here, right? Everyone who's here, chances are our goal is to achieve homeownership. And that might be our big goal. Again, maybe we have sub goals or smaller goals that we have today that we're working towards that big goal of homeownership. And that's okay too. Homeownership is a really big goal. Eric says, my goal is to pay off student loans to pull up my credit score this year. Yes, that's a great goal and a great goal to have, especially because, student loan debt can feel really overwhelming sometimes. And so to be able to pay down that debt, pull that credit score up, and then move on to our other financial goals is really rewarding. And then our last comment in here that I want to give a shout out to is from Julian, who says he is studying this month to obtain a CDL by March. Yes. And doing that for him is going to allow him to be able to build a career and make life more affordable long-term. Julian, thanks for dropping that note in the chat. I love that. And so again, this is a great example of like, sometimes our personal goals are not really financial goals on the surface, but they're things that are going to allow us to ultimately achieve our really important financial goals long-term. And so we should also think about what are those things that we can do to position ourselves well to be able to achieve these goals. So I want to speak positivity, like positive vibes around these goals that y'all have set and really encourage and motivate you guys to remind you that you can do these things. We are here to hold you accountable. And like I said, forget the haters, put pen to paper, make yourself a goal and really envision. Think about that vision boarding, right? Think about what is this going to look like and feel like? What am I going to feel like when I achieve this financial goal? What is my family going to feel like? when I achieve this financial goal for us. I want to open it up. If you do have any questions for us, this is a great time to drop those in the chat. I know we're a little over tonight. We got excited, y'all, and talking about all of our goals and things that we're aspiring to do in 2022. So that's okay. But if you do have questions, drop them to us in the chat and I'll make sure to stick around and get to those tonight. And I want to leave you guys with a couple of resources as well. We've talked a lot tonight about PocketWise. This is the link that you see on your screen. We dropped the link in the chat box earlier as well. So again, if you have not checked out PocketWise, Dallas Habitat's free financial self-guided education, go on and do that. And then we also want to remind you again that we've got upcoming live webinars, and we also have all of our archived on-demand recorded webinars from years past that are also available on the website. So if you didn't already know, we've got 2 more classes coming up this month. We've got a class this Saturday, which is our HUD certified home buyer education course. That is a lengthy course. And so if you are not sure if you should be in that class, ask your counselor and they can help you understand if you're ready for that class. Just because it is a longer time commitment, right? But that class will be this Saturday if you need it. If you're a short-term client, if you're almost mortgage ready, you're almost ready to take that next step of shopping for a home, this is the time to do that class. And then we have our next workshop that's open to everyone on the 25th, Tuesday the 25th. That class will be hosted by our very own Porfirio Coronado, who's going to be talking about qualifying for a mortgage and income taxes. Okay, so just shout out right now, y'all. If you have not yet filed your income taxes for 2021, you may want to wait off until our workshop on the 25th, okay? Because taxes, income taxes, and how you file those income taxes is one of the most important determinants on whether or not you're going to be able to qualify for a home this year, okay? And so I can't tell you how much of the time clients say to us, oh, I didn't realize with how I filed taxes was going to negatively affect my ability to qualify for a mortgage. I wish I would have known that before I hustled and filed at the beginning of the year, okay? So we're hosting this free workshop on the 25th early in the year on purpose, okay? So think about attending that class if you haven't filed yet, because even if you don't file yourself, even if you're using a preparer, we're gonna talk a lot about what to review on your taxes and questions that you might ask your tax preparer before you file if your goal for 2022 is home ownership. Even, be honest with you, even if your goal is home ownership in 2023 or beyond. So with that said, let's see. Oh, Renisha says a little off topic, but she wants to know, where's Habitat currently building? We can send that information in the chat. That often changes, Renisha, too. And so we would say, don't get too caught up on that. Where we're at right now may not be where we're at in 6 months. So it also really just kind of depends on where you are in the process as well. But we can definitely send you some info on that in the chat. And Cheryl says, thank you for all the information. And shout out to her counselor, Christian, who's going to hold her accountable this year. Yes, ma'am. We love to hear that. And you're most welcome, Cheryl. Thank you for making the commitment to yourself and for being here tonight. And then, excuse me, Odette says, thanks for all the great info. Odette, thank you again. One moment.